Hey guys, welcome back. This is going to be the introduction to our main Photoshop project. We've been doing a couple exercises previously in the week before. We're going to take all of that plus one more thing that I'm going to show you guys and sort of bring all of those techniques and those skills that we've acquired together to produce a much larger piece in terms of the time that we're going to spend on it and the thought we're going to put into it. And the content for this is going to be entirely up to you guys. This is your narrative to establish, your piece to work on and say whatever you want to say with it. We're going to be making a digital collage, and how I want you guys to approach this is as if you were going to tell a story or communicate something to your viewers. You can tell a story about yourself, your family, friends, something like that. This could be something like a tribute to your favorite poem. It could be about a particular point in your life where you experienced something or felt a certain way. So it's the content is really it's up to you guys, but I encourage you to approach this in terms of thinking of telling a story of some kind. Alright, so collage. What is a collage? A collage is a collection of different images that have been taken out of their originating context, their originating environment, and brought together to create one completely different environment. So for instance, this one here, this is a lot of different images brought together to create something new. They've been taken out of their original environment. You know, these people on their bicycles here on this roadway overlooking some place, probably not this scene that we're seeing here. So they've been taken out of their original environment and dropped into one entirely different to communicate something, to tell some sort of story. So that's sort of how I want you guys to think when approaching this, is how can we take images from different environments, bring part of them in, and use that to create some sort of narrative, tell some sort of story. I'm just going to show you a few more of these. So what you're going to do is you're going to take everything that we've covered so far, your ability to mask, your ability to paint, change color, overlay things, working with layers, selections, and bringing that together to spend some time and create something that should be portfolio worthy for you guys if you're art students or even otherwise, you know. So this one here is one of my favorites. There's a little bit of drawing brought into this, changes in color with some overlays, different images. You can see here is a black and white image, changes to probably, you know, this grass is all from the same photo, but it's been altered by overlaying color onto it. These triangles, probably a little bit of painting have gone into those, things like that. So a little bit about collage. Collage started early in the 20th century. Guys, they usually attribute it to our Braque and Picasso. And right here you can see right on the front page of Wikipedia, Kurt Schwitters is one of the guys who's prominently famous for the use of this medium, and there's quite a few others. I recommend taking a look through this page, you know, skim through it, read through it, get an idea of what collage is about. It's typically a traditional medium, using cutouts from magazines and things like that. And something to note, like you just saw with this first image I showed you guys, it's kind of a weird scene. It's kind of a weird visual story that's happening here. Collage tends to lend itself towards surrealism more than any other, I guess, visual movement. So if you get a chance, read up on surrealism. And this started around about the same time, a little bit after this movement started, early 1920s. Guys like Max Ernst, you've probably seen some of Salvador Dali's work, the melting clocks, the stilt-legged elephants, things like that. So this medium sort of lends itself to that more than any other, just by virtue of we're taking all of these disparate elements and bringing them together to create something completely different, something completely new, and they may or may not jive with one another. And sometimes it's surrealism is unavoidable when working with collage as a medium. So what I'm gonna do is close this out, and I'm going to put up a link for this as well. You guys will get links to all these things in addition to the formal document for this project. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys a couple things here. So this is one that I did as a demo. It's in progress. I don't consider this refined, but it's a good example to show you guys of the techniques in use for this project. So as you can see here, I've got a clipping mask, I've got some different masks here as well, and the way these work is this allows me to selectively decide which bits of content on that layer I want to show. So for instance, this bug that's right here from one of my photos that I've taken, you can see I've got a blend mode turned on. I'll switch that off for now, and what I'm doing is I'm selectively deciding which pixels I want to show up and which ones I want to be hidden. So what this allows me to do is this allows me to do that, to choose what I want to show while retaining that extra information if I need to bring any of it back. So I have the option of going back through and bringing some of that information back in case I want to bring it through and utilize it in some way. So it's a non-destructive way of erasing content and keeping that around so I can utilize that in some way later on if I feel the need to, or if I feel like it's refined enough, I can sort of apply that and make that sort of a finished action in terms of this layer and its content. So what I'm going to show you guys now is how that works, how layer masking works. So we previously looked at clipping masks. This is a different means of masking out content that's not dependent upon a layer underneath it. So first thing that you guys are going to need to do is as you gather, you'll have to go out and gather some images and some content. I'm going to put up a few links for you guys that you can take a look at and get some Creative Commons free to use images from the internet, or you can go out and photograph some of your own stuff, take some photos of your own. If you have access to a scanner, go ahead and scan things in, things like that. So what you'll do is first off, open your image in Photoshop. It's going to open it as a background layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of this background layer so I can work with it. You'll see there's a little lock right here. What that means is this is the fixed background. There's no transparency underneath it. If we're going to overlay this, we need transparency. So I've got to make a change to this in one of two ways. Firstly, I can drag it to the new layer content, shut that one off. Now if I were to move this, you'll see the checkerboard pattern. It's transparency behind there. The other thing I can do is I can double click on this and let me name it layer 0. and now same result. So just be aware of that. If it's labeled as background, you're going to want to either duplicate that layer or double click so you can get transparency, which is essential for masking out parts of your photo. Okay, so how layer masks work: you're going to choose the layer that you want to mask out, and you can drop these photos into your main collage. I recommend creating your collage document before anything else, and then dropping the photos into that. So what you'll do is you drop your photo in, get it on its own layer, and what you're looking for is, in our layers palette, there's this little icon that looks kind of like it's a box with a hole in it, or it kind of looks like a camera to me. It's the best way of describing it. So what you'll do is choose your layer, and then click on this little icon, and what you'll see is it's added a second thumbnail to the right here. So we've got two things going on here. This thumbnail, when selected, you'll see it puts brackets around it. This means I'm working directly with the visible pixels in my image. If I were to come through and make a paint mark, it's going to paint on the image. With this one to the right selected, this is my layer mask. I'm going to be working in the layer mask only. This is the part that determines what is visible and what is invisible. And the way we determine that is by painting with either black to hide pixel information or white to show pixel information. And the grays in between that work as varying degrees of transparency. So if I were to come through and paint with my layer mask thumbnail selected with straight up black down through this, it's going to erase it entirely. If I switch my color palettes here with either these little arrows or with the X key and paint with white, it's going to bring back that pixel information. And you can see here on the side in the thumbnail, as I'm doing this, it's actually showing a bit of that change in what it looks like. Now if I paint with a roughly 50% value of gray, I'm going to get 50% transparency across my image. Now I can then go through and paint and selectively choose what I'm going to show and what I'm not going to show. So if I were to mask out this bug, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in kind of close, and by virtue of this image being a kind of a macro shot, it's a little fuzzy, so I kind of want to retain some of that. I'm going to lower the hardness of my brush. I'm going to come through, and I'm basically going to just paint away what I don't want to show in my image. And this will be a little tedious depending on the image that you're working with, but we've got a whole week for this project. Really devote some time to it, give it your best shot, and really think about your narrative. Think about what you're trying to establish in terms of what you're communicating to your viewers. Are you telling some sort of story? Are you trying to communicate some sort of either message in terms of social crisis or some sort of political agenda, something like that, or even just illustrating something as simple as your favorite poem. This project originally, when I had done it as a student, was we went out and looked at haikus, picked our favorite haiku, and illustrated that haiku as a digital collage. So that's an option for you guys as well. there's plenty of different ways to approach this project, different solutions to it depending on the subject matter that you guys want to deal with. And I've thrown a couple ideas out there for you guys on how to get jump started with it. Like I said, could be finding a haiku or your favorite poem and finding a way to visually illustrate that. Your favorite song, maybe a short story that evokes some sort of feeling or mood for you. In terms of what I am not looking for in this project, I don't want to see something like a grid pattern collage of your photos from your study abroad trip. I don't want to see basically a grid work pattern where it's one photo laid over another and that kind of deal. Something that almost looks like it belongs in a scrapbook. And I'm not knocking scrapbooking at all. That's a valid art form, but that's not what we're looking to do with this project. That's not what we're trying to do with this. We're thinking of this in terms of an artistic endeavor and really trying to communicate something or build up some sort of narrative using different visuals. So just be aware of that. Okay, so last thing I want to show you guys, I'm just going to get rid of this mask for now. The way you guys can do this is if you don't like what's going on with it, you can erase it away. But if you just want to get rid of the mask, you just grab the little thumbnail for it, drag it to the trash. It's going to ask you if you want to apply it or just delete it. Just going to delete it. Or if you want to apply it, say you've masked everything out and you're ready to move this over to your other document, what you'll do before doing that is right-clicking on the layer mask thumbnail, apply layer mask, go to select all, copy it, go to your document, paste it in, and you can see it's retained the transparency for me there. Okay, so last thing I want to show you guys, last technique in addition to layer masking, is non-destructive adjustment layers. So what these are is these allow you to make adjustments to your image in different ways without actually destroying that pixel data, destroying the original data that you've got, just like layer masking does. The way we do that is through right here next to our layer mask icon. It's this little half moon looking little circle that's been divided in half diagonally. I'm going to click on that, and what these are non-destructive adjustment layers. These let us do different things to our image without altering the original. So I'm going to just do a hue and saturation adjustment here, and the way this works is you'll get some sliders, you can dial them around, you can adjust all sorts of cool stuff with this, making changes and adjustments to your image. I can colorize the whole thing, stuff like that. Choose how bright it is, how dark it needs to get, how much saturation should be dropped into it. And cool thing about this is you can then mask this as well. So say I only wanted, after clicking that, it comes automatically with a layer mask here. If I wanted just part of this applied to this image, I could choose to do that. And the way these will work is they'll apply themselves, as a layer. They're overlaid over everything. If you wanted this change to show up on just the bug layer, what I would do is right-click on it and make it a clipping mask. To show you that in action here, what you can see is, excuse me, in this layer here, see I've got a hue and saturation adjustment layer right here over top of this glass texture that's on the lake. and it's a clipping mask. This is being applied just to this layer of the glass. So if I were to release this clipping mask, it's going to color the entire image. So I wanted that change just on this single layer. So all I did was make it a clipping mask, and it's not going to affect my, little mountain here, and other portions of my my collage, like the bug and some of the stuff going on underneath. And there's quite a few options in here as well. So feel free to play around with this. One of my favorite ones is the gradient map, which if you pop it open and then just click on the main gradient, what this lets you do is sort of play around with it and colorize this in different ways, choosing what the dark values are and what the lighter values are. Double clicking on one of the little swatches will let you come through and choose the color that's being utilized there. You can dial it around, change things. To drop out one of these swatches, you just click and drag it down and off. So non-destructive adjustment layers offer you a lot of options for altering your image around without actually destroying that original information, just in case you don't like it. If it turns out the change is exactly what you're looking for and you want to keep it, all you do is right click on that gradient layer, and what you're looking for is merge down, and it now becomes part of that image. It's a permanent change at this point. So it's a nice way of sort of making a change and getting an idea of what it looks like and living with it a little bit before actually committing to it and making it a permanent thing. Alright guys, I think that just about covers it. If I think of anything else, I'll put that up in the board. I'm going to have some sort of other resources going up for you guys as well during this process, and we're going to have a in progress forum as well, where you guys can save a JPEG of what you've got so far about midway through, post it up, get some feedback, some advice on where it's heading, some possible changes you guys might need to make, things to think about. So be aware of that, be on time for that, make sure you're working on this pretty steadily throughout the week, especially early on. If you have any questions, hit me up in the forums or through an email, and I will see you guys on Blackboard.